I didn't try it on, but I will try it. Oh, that's okay. That's great. I was wondering if you.
All right. Are we good? I didn't tell you if this one was wrong. Okay. See the cursor again. Cursor's just getting stuck there.
It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Hello. Welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. This is an examination of affordable housing in Madison, specifically about Theresa Terrace from someone who lived in the neighborhood as it was being constructed. Quick agenda. It's going to be who I am, if you don't know who I am. A Tale of Two Homes, the Theresa Terrace timeline, talking about the construction process, how it went from planning to getting funding to actually being constructed, and then if time, affordable housing barriers, I'll open it to the floor. I'd like to hear from all of you, and if time, land value taxes and affordable housing and how they can work together. Who am I? My name is Josh Olson. Also, that's a pretty common name. I've been referred to as John Olson in the local news coverage, so you may have seen that. But specifically, you may have seen me in the Strong Towns Madison local conversation. I'm one of the coordinators there. I'm on Discord. I also ran the Strong Towns Madison Crash Analysis Studio last summer in 2024. And I've been in several bylines. I write the monthly newsletter for Madison's for People. I sent several letters to the editor in the Cap Times, and then I have my own blog called Counting Cranes because I was tired of dealing with the 250 word limit that the Cap Times has. So who knew it would take more than 250 words to solve housing in Madison? This video isn't gonna play, but you also may have seen me at Common Council giving public comment. I'm hoping to take my own advice here, where I ran on stage and basically said, my name is Josh and I've got to catch a bus, so I'm gonna make this quick. So I'm hoping to do that tonight, kind of walk through this process and not keep you here too long. Oh yeah, so you can hear it on the computer audio. But why should I be giving this presentation? This is a very fair question to ask. My housing background is mostly as a hobby. My interest started in Madison when I saw the Wonder Bar restaurant fail to be developed. It was looking to be an apartment building and it was turned down because of historic preservation. So that got me very interested in what it takes to actually build housing in Madison. I've been following the discourse since then. Specifically, I want to point out that there are many organizations that are going to be giving talks this week with lots of people who are really experts on housing in a way that I'm not. They can speak in a more in-depth analysis in a nuanced way than I'm going to this week. I think it's going to be an awesome week to review and attend those sessions and hear what people are talking about. But for now, we need to be hearing from someone who isn't going to be in this room, even though I'm giving this talk. I think we need to be hearing from people, from Madisonians who aren't plugged into the Madison housing discourse, and to remind us what they think affordable housing is and what they expect from it, and bringing them along in this whole process of constructing these affordable homes. But we have a catch-22 because they're not going to show up and speak tonight, because why would they ever attend a housing week convention with all these things? It's probably not even on their radar, but that's okay. I'm gonna channel my inner normie, and being a former resident of the area where these affordable homes were built, kind of talk about the project itself and what we can do to improve the affordable housing process going forward. So, if you didn't know, because I didn't know until July, Theresa Terrace in the southwest neighborhood of Madison welcomed 6 affordable housing units in July. These were 6 beautiful affordable townhomes located on Theresa Terrace. It's like the Terrace Street. It's next to the Prairie Hills Neighborhood Association building and a community center. It's a really cool process to have seen in a news blast, but I kind of was like, whoa, this came out of nowhere. I was in the neighborhood and I didn't even see this. it's a tale of two homes because I also completed construction on a home this year in Fitchburg. We got the keys in September. We were starting to seriously consider buying a home in November of last year. We had preliminary design discussions in January. We found a lot that we liked. We moved into actual design discussions in March, and by April, we were ready to close. Ready to close and ready to break ground, but we didn't break ground right away. The main reason for this was because of zoning. 30 minutes before we were about to close, our builder called us and informed us that they didn't get city permits. So that was a very interesting conversation. We canceled the closing meeting. We weren't having a good time, and I was trying to understand from our builder's perspective why we didn't get the permits. They said a couple of key words. There was 60% T4 in lot width. So I decided to open up the Fitchburg zoning code. And this is where I have to acknowledge that me being a housing nerd and a zoning nerd, most people won't do this. They will not go immediately to the T4 transact zone to figure out what exactly their builder was trying to say and why it didn't get built. So I read the zoning code for Fitchburg, and I found what I thought she was referring to, which is this passage right here that requires 60% of your primary facade to be the house. In this specific neighborhood, the lot widths are generally designed to be small. They're about 100 feet. In our case, we had a little extra because we are an edge yard. So we're at 110 feet, but all of the home designs are the same. They're all 60 feet. So our 60% moved to 54%. And our builder did not anticipate this, even though they've built dozens of homes. So they had no idea what was going on. I sent them this passage, basically saying, this is our problem right here. And if you're reading the rest of this, you can see that there's even a way to get out of it if you're, the back of your house has access to, or doesn't have access to a rear alley, but ours does. So like we couldn't wiggle out from this clause. I didn't stop there. I kept reading, read all of the zoning code, and 2 pages later, I found this clause saying an administrative waiver can be obtained to reduce the frontage build-out requirements for odd-shaped edge-yard single-family lots created in edge conditions, but not for more than 15% of edge-yard single-family lots in a plat. I sent this to my builder and said, talk to the city about this. I think this is our way that we can get out of this. We don't have to worry about conditional use. We don't have to worry about spending money on getting a patio to wrap around our house, which would give us the frontage requirements as well. So they brought it to the city. This was on Friday. We canceled our closing. Builder talked to city staff on Monday. They said they had never heard of this clause. So they said, give us a couple days to get back to you. And then on Wednesday, they got back to our builder and said, this works. So everything was clear. We avoided conditional use. We avoided spending money on the patio. This is mostly, like, even though we didn't get delayed, we probably were looking at a significant delay. If we needed a conditional use for this, we have to get on next month's plan commission, or if they don't have room for that agenda, following plan commission, or even the month after that one, who knows? If I happened to make any enemies on the plan commission that didn't like me, they could say no if they found a good reason not to give me the conditional use. If that didn't work, then we're looking at probably over $10,000 to wrap the patio around our home. All of this to say, when I heard that city staff wasn't even aware that this clause had been in use and existed, I wanted to know why this was on the books. If no one's using this and we have this rule, like, what is the point? And to bring this back to affordable housing, me as like private construction, we're dealing with these hassles. Public sector is going to be dealing with these hassles, and it's going to be amplified because there are just more steps in the way. So from an affordable housing perspective, how can we streamline the rules that we are probably going to run into as well, and make sure that we don't trip or get stuck in the hassle of dealing with them? So I don't think most citizens are aware of the zoning codes. They're not looking through these. So even just like, if I wasn't a zoning person, having to trust that my developer and the city staff would also know how to get around this is important too. With that said, we still completed on time and on budget. It was great. To summarize how our construction works, we got a construction loan that covered the cost of construction. At major milestones, we would allot certain amounts of that. We didn't need to change the allot amounts, and there were no change orders. We had a contractual agreement with the builder to get it done in 180 days or less. They did it in 151 days. No major delays, even with that whole zoning thing. The funny thing too with that is we moved closing to be the following week. We signed on it. Everything was gonna get pushed about a week for the construction timeline, but no one told the excavators, so they still dug anyways on their design date. So our builder was driving in the neighborhood and called us a few days before we were expecting to go out and take pictures with this big lot, and she was like, it already happened. So I guess we're getting it a week early. It's great. With that, Theresa Terrace, they did not stay on the same on budget and on timeline experience that we had, from what I can tell. And I think that we can do better. So I'm gonna walk us through this process from the perspective of someone who lived in the neighborhood while it was happening, and mostly focusing on trying to improve these numbers. And my concern is if we don't improve these numbers, one, we're gonna see a lot of needed housing remain on the sidelines, on paper, not being built or not being funded. And then two, I think we might be giving ammo to people who do not like affordable housing as a concept, and they might attempt to use these metrics as a way to leverage reasons to not build more of it. If we say with our budget that we're expecting $2 million or $333,000 per unit, and it actually comes out to be $455,000 per unit, and the timeline that we're saying is 1 year, and then it takes 3.5 years to build it, they can approach this and say, we're not doing a good job. How can we make this better? So that's what I want to talk about. I'm an optimist at heart. I think we can really examine and reflect on what happened here to figure out how we can make a productive system in the future. So back to affordable housing at its roots. To me, affordable housing is like a Rorschach ink blot test. Everyone sees their own definition of what it is and what affordable means. I've been to many construction meetings, neighborhood meetings about projects. A lot of the members of the public will say that we need this to be affordable housing. And then it's interesting listening to what they define affordable housing to mean to them. And specifically for the Brayton Lot project right on East Washington, there were a lot of people that were saying affordable was going to be we would reach affordable by restricting the height of the building in the request for proposal that the city staff was going to write and put out for developers. They were ascribing affordable, something that sounds good at a public meeting and what you would use to try and convince people to your perspective, for small and low heights because that's what they personally wanted. And as I've gone to different meetings across the city representing different areas and different densities, everyone's sense of affordability changes, and it's usually usually fits what they want and what best fits their preferences. So I don't really want to work with that because it's too subjective. I'd rather work with a real definition. With that in mind, I'm going to do the Discourse Lounge, Daryl Owens, his definition of what affordable housing actually means. This is subsidized housing. So it's the public or nonprofit organizations paying the difference between what residents can afford and what the market rate construction prices are. The fact that market rate and affordable housing can look indistinguishable, this allows, this also connects with the luxury housing debate, that people will conflate new with luxury, even if the new building is affordable housing by definition, and it's being subsidized for the people living in it. Specifically, it is not the housing that the median Madisonian homeowner can buy. It's limited to those in certain area median income ranges, specifically for the purpose of subsidizing those housing costs. When we talk about affordable housing, we shouldn't say this is someone who has a home can buy into this. We're talking about subsidizing. So if affordable housing is publicly funded, what is the government's role? This is where I get into housing from a strong Townsian ethos. Centralized planning can help, but I think organic growth allows for adaptability and changing to what the neighborhood needs and generating prosperity and wealth in ways that centralized planning can sometimes miss. Chuck Barone from Strong Towns thinks that there's a role for tax increment financing, which is a TIF. What's particularly interesting is in Wisconsin, the state legislature seems to agree with this. There was a recent Bill AB 451, which would create residential tax incremental districts, that passed in committee 12-2 on a bipartisan basis. So I think that's possibly there, but also I think the city should be responsible for identifying infill housing types like these missing middle housing that can fill a need that's needed in Madison. I think I know the answer here, but I'm curious, how many people in this room have seen this diagram? Okay. So if you haven't seen this is a fun website. It's the Madison area property taxes per acre graph. It's workable, like you can hover over any one of these parcels and it'll tell you how much that parcel is paying in property taxes per acre. What this really is showing is the purple and orange areas are paying a higher property tax per acre compared to yellow plots, which are paying a lower property tax per acre. This generally conforms with the consensus that you have more valuable buildings in the middle of your city, in your central core, and as you sprawl out, property values, at least in terms of how they, per acre and with infrastructure costs, they just get more costly. So this is where a lot of private development in the 50s and 90s focused on sprawl, larger lots, smaller family homes. The city can help build a lot of these more infill, denser housing types that we see closer to the central core. What this does mean, if we start building more of those infill housing, it's better tax base, which means less referendums and lower property taxes for owners. So back to Theresa Terrace. I lived next to the Theresa Terrace projects in this small infill apartment building just down the road. Specifically, I lived in this apartment building from October 2022 to July 2024, and that's very relevant for this project. I wasn't aware that these townhomes were being built when I was living there, even though I attended my neighborhood association meetings. So the place where we met at the Theresa Terrace Community Center was across the street from these townhomes, and I had no idea that they were being built. There's a reason for that, but we'll get to that later. I saw a news blast for this in my email in July, and I had this relentless itch to figure out, why didn't I know about these projects while they were being built, and what process did they go through to be completed, because I just like almost completed construction on my home, and I was very curious to see where they differed, where they were the same, and what could we learn from either process. So the Theresa Terrace units, a history. They used to be vacant and underused lots. Multiple buildings were torn down to make room for the 6 townhomes. Most of these units were vacated by 2018, but some of them were vacated by 2015. Plan Commission determined because of mold, significant remediation required, as well as a portion of the building being below grade, which would make relocation difficult, that these were meeting the standards for demolition. I wanted to point out that vacant lots in particular are a great stock to pull from for affordable housing. You don't need to remove occupants or families while you're constructing the building. So I'm glad that they found these. I'm still surprised with how long it took, considering that they were vacated as of 2018, to move on this process. Speaking of, so my itch led me down a path of Legistar documents. And if you don't know what Legistar is, that is the city documentation database for processing all of the amendments and action items that are placed in front of committees and common council in Madison. So I looked through all the Legistar dates to figure out what the actual timeline is. Here is my attempt to put it all together. The start of our timeline is that 2015 to 2018 range. I'm calling this the thinking part of this timeline, the phase. The buildings remained vacant until someone or some group at the Community Development Authority, or I'm going to call them the CDA for the rest of this presentation, identified that they were homes that were underused. They could demolish them and rebuild for affordable housing of 6 units. So the CDA is the city's body for enacting housing, redevelopment, and community development authority granted by the state of Wisconsin. It's possible that they were planning on doing this for years, but I still think that's an important characteristic in this process. If we know areas that would be good for redevelopment and we just can't move on it because of funding, that's a different question we need to answer. So 2021 is when the ball really gets rolling. For nearly 30 years, the Madison Revitalization and Community Development Corporation, also known as MRCDC, invests, receives, holds, and disposes of real or personal property to facilitate community redevelopment. That's from city statutes. It's a nonprofit body that basically serves low-income people and communities, mostly through housing. The CDA proposed transferring ownership of the units that they owned to MRCDC so they could redevelop them into affordable housing. And this happened sometime in 2021. We are now approaching the next stage, which is approvals. In this stage, planning and discussion actually began. A land use application that was submitted in November 22 revealed that applicants are strongly encouraged to discuss the proposed development and review process with zoning and planning division staff. Those conversations took place in February of 2022. We then move on to the process of letting district alders and applicable neighborhood and business associations know in writing, no later than 30 days prior to filing the application request. These meetings took place on November 7th and November 21st, and the application was actually processed on November 28th. I think that in itself is interesting. I don't know if they followed the rules on that one because it says 30 days, but besides that, the application actually said that the scheduled construction date is spring of 2023 and the planned completion date is fall of 2023. CDA then goes to the Plan Commission and they're asking for a demolition permit in January of 2023. This process involves meeting standards to raise the existing residences and asking for a recommendation of approval to rezone the properties from SRC3 to SRV1. There's a ton of paperwork that goes into this. You have to document all of the surrounding land uses and zoning, comprehensive plan guidelines, public utilities and services, all of the zoning requirements like lot area, width, setback, lot coverages, and heights, project descriptions, compliance, amendment processes, demo permit standards. All of these things have to be filed. I don't know if it's like my place to criticize this process. It's probably all pretty important, but I still think it's worth reviewing to figure out if we can streamline this process, because that's a lot of time required from city staff to get all of that information available for Plan Commission to review. But we do get the approval, and it's then sent for a request to get an amendment to Madison's general ordinances. It gets Plan Commission's recommendation, and it goes to Common Council where it's approved for the rezoning of the property. The land can now build a 3-unit structure. That happens in February of 2023. To be very clear, the original zoning of SRC3 does not permit single-family attached dwellings of 3 to 4 units by right. This was altered to be SRV1, which does allow single-family attached dwellings of dwellings of 3 to 4 units by right. This is a necessary step to incrementally build up from what was a duplex to a 3-unit structure. I can tell, like, all of this it's a lot of information, and that's kind of the point. There's a lot of steps that we have to go through just to even get to approving, not even considering financing and the construction of the project. And like, that's the whole emphasis of this presentation. Why are we getting caught up in this if we really need the affordable housing? So, I couldn't find the original bid, but at some point in 2023, the project was bid out. MRCDC they put out the bid. By October 23rd, they had not received a response for the bid, and the CDA procurement policy allows the executive director to proceed with sole source contracts if an insufficient number of bids were received. In December, Madison Common Council authorized the allocation of up to $2 million in city affordable housing funds for MRCDC to demolish the units and develop the 6 townhome units. These are allocated in the form of a long-term deferred loan. Although I didn't see the original project, I can't say if the estimated cost was $2 million or if it's understood that more funds would be needed in the future and they just didn't know what the funds would be. I figured it was $2 million. If you knew it was going to be more, go with it, but important caveat. Leading up to May 2024, we actually kind of get into the building phase. So the CDA conducts a direct solicitation for demolition and construction estimates from qualified firms. They select KPH Construction. They sent an all-inclusive bid of $2.7 million. This is subject to Common Council approving a budget amendment, granting the CDA additional budget authority for general obligation or GO borrowing to finance the increased costs beyond the $2 million that are already allocated. Basically, we're not gonna move forward unless Common Council agrees to get the extra $700,000 that were required. That happened 2 weeks later, in May as well, and basically it's gonna be in the form of an additional $1 million GO loan that will be repaid. Then we get to September 2024. On September 17th, KPH finally breaks ground on the project. Whoops, skip the slide there. In April of 2025, the CDA approves the additional $1 million loan. I think this is more of a procedural step. I feel like it's like allotments. You don't give the construction firm all of the money from the get-go. You hit major milestones, at least in my process. So they probably hit a major milestone and the CDA said, okay, we'll give you the rest of the money. And then July 28th, 2025, we ribbon cut and people are allowed to move into the homes. So I moved in right around here in this timeline, and I moved out here. That is why I did not see these townhomes being built. There was no construction or demolition yet. All of that was purely hypothetical in the paper world of what are we doing with planning and financing and getting approvals. So that's why I did not know what was going on. So yeah. In between the start of this project, we can go back to 2015 based on the fact that those units were vacated. All of these things happened to me. Graduated high school, college, got a job, moved between 8 homes, donated blood 20 times. Packers made the NFC Championship 4 times. If we go back to the more generous early 2022, I got a job, moved between 4 homes, donated blood 19 times, and the Mariners made 1 playoff appearance. But the significant thing here is this took 3.5 years or 1,273 days. That is a really, really long time to the point that if I was a better student, I could have gotten a bachelor's degree in that time. We introduced housing production targets this year. There's a nifty counter online. The city replaced a job or like a little pet project that Mike Zenz was working on that he would send the units to me. I put in the Madison for People newsletter. Honestly, it saved us a ton of time, mostly him. So I'm glad that they put this out there. But I think it's important to acknowledge we have a 15,000 new home goal by 2030. And 25% of these, or 3,750 units, are expected to be permanently affordable. And I'm struggling to figure out how we can get to that pace if it takes us this long to do 6. Wouldn't be fair to say it's just those 6 units that are being built. There's a lot of them that are under construction. There's a lot of large affordable projects, including the Triangle redevelopment off of West Washington. There's also the South Transfer Point at Badger and Park. But those projects, while exciting, are different, much larger projects focused on apartments. We should be considering affordable homes of all types and seriously consider what it takes to get starter homes and infill housing as meaningful portions of this 3,750 goal. So this is where I open the floor to all of you. I'm curious, throughout this process, what stuck out to you that resulted in the process taking 3.5 years? And I know, Will, you have council experience, so I'm curious like if there's anything else from that world that kind of sticks out to you.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is people don't feel comfortable moving forward with the project. A lot of leaders don't feel comfortable moving forward with the project without spending a significant amount of time on planning and making sure that the community is involved. And I think there are good reasons for that. And then it can also, there are times where it's frustrating, where things feel like they fit in with the existing plan.
Others?
I'm not that surprised at 3.5 years, just looking at like the permitting time and then the idea that there's a bunch of meetings that are kind of additional meetings that have different cycle time. Because, you know, I've worked with zoning to try to build some accessory dwelling units, and like 6 months has been like incredibly fast, and that's with like bothering them to get things done. So I can only imagine if they are working on their own timeline with more kind of policy checkpoints where, okay, when's the next meeting? Oh, it's in a month, you know, let's get ready for that, or just adding those. So like 2 years feels like that would have been like very fast. Just with the city speed of operation and extra meetings.
Mhm.
And I don't think that, I do a lot of entitlements too, 3.5 years. I mean, it should go faster, but like, I've done my own development besides doing it for others, and mine took 3.5 years, and there was a lot that went into that. Partially on our fault, partially on the city, different city,
Yeah.
it was Monona, but the same thing, it would be like, you know, we would be like, can we just get this on that agenda now?
Yeah.
And you know, once you miss one, it just starts, months accumulate, cause at least Madison's twice a month. There's a
Yeah.
lot of places that are, you know, once a month for the, you know, you just start missing them, and then you get tabled. Then you're worried about your finance, so now you pull it for a little while, then you come back, now you got new people, now you get tabled again, you know, and it's tough.
Yeah.
And they don't have enough staff.
Yeah.
There's just no way around it. Madison, they're not even close to having enough staff.
It's an amendment to get an additional engineer for infill mapping.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, but I mean, and you know how hard the budget is.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got,
We're trying to get every penny so that we don't have
Yeah.
against the limit without, you know, raising taxes beyond 3%.
when they talk about the 15,000 goal, like, I think Madison's done a really good job of trying really hard. Like, we can all quibble, but it's not been for a lack of caring,
Yeah.
you know, and we can get frustrated on some. But how much of it is student housing units that have come in? Do you know, like, I've
Or-
always met, like, of that 15,000, like, it seems like they're way better at getting the student housing and even student affordable housing.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can see student housing is probably that big bubble right there,
Yeah.
but I mean, they've got a lot done
Yeah.
off of, East Washington, I think like a decent chunk right by, I think this is like Mineral Point Road, further up East Washington, closer to like the East Town Mall. So I don't think it's all like student housing.
Yeah.
Like a decent chunk is being done, but still, like, even this project in itself as like a small 6-unit infill, like, those are probably all these little dots, that I'm definitely interested in, cause we can kind of move those big projects along through common council, but these ones probably, just based on their volume, aren't gonna get the same attention.
This is a bit tangential, but you know, we talked about the definition of affordable,
Mhm.
and I see the word affordable here. Do you know what definition is being, like, is this 3,700 government subsidized homes?
Isn't it
Homes that are subsidized and available only to renter households with incomes no greater than 60% of Madison's area median income, or to homeowners with the income no greater than 80% AMI.
So I'm just curious, what kind of, you know, budget outlay, you know, economic value of subsidization this would reflect. And, you know, obviously there's the houses, those 6 houses cost $455.
Yeah.
What's a fair market value rent compared to what they end up renting? There's some calculation, it's probably not $500,000 each as a unit, because if we did $500,000 per unit times 3,700, like, that would be a very big number.
Yes.
But I'm just curious, you know, how much thought has, you know, happened behind this, because if it is government subsidy, like, great, you know, let's have cheap houses for people who can disagree with that, but if it's actually government money, does anyone have a sense of how much money that actually is?
I don't know the percentages. I mean, I would have to suspect most of those are WIDA.
Yeah, Rita, Lytec.
Yeah, the LIHTC, and I wonder how much goes in their capital stack. I should know that answer, but it's a big number, but not that big. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think a good example of this is the Triangle project, from what I saw, is expecting like over $300 million in investment. I think 41 is coming from the city, at least so far, for phases 1 through 3. They're still getting estimates on 4 and 5, but like, what I am thinking of with that, the money's coming from somewhere. So being respectful of those numbers when it comes to what can we do to reduce costs that aren't, I guess, like hard material costs. Like, if this is just staff time and waiting for things to be constructed, and also reducing timelines if we can.
and 60% AMI, that's not low income housing. Is it 60% AMI? 60% AMI is going to be like new teachers, you know, starting off police officers.
So that's where there might be a difference between affordable versus low income. I mean, it does mention here, deeply affordable rental housing for those making no greater than 30% AMI is also tracked.
Yeah, so that's what I mean, so
Yeah.
at 60% AMI, somewhere right around 100,000. You know, for, like, maybe it's less than that,
For
but
94.
94, yeah, so
Yeah.
you take 64, I mean, you're talking about somebody making 60,000 trying to rent an apartment, which is, yeah, there's a lot to do.
A
What-
household making
what's it?
60,000. A household making 60,000.
Yeah, and so, yeah, so
That's for one
one
person.
person.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah.
It,
I
AMI
have
goes
in a couple slides, I do have the chart that the Madison city staff
So
put out
4%.
with the announcement of like these homes. So like we can look at those numbers particularly. I think it's like, I think they're listing like 54,000 or something like that, so.
Do you see, so it seems as if planning at the city, certainly in some areas, has certainly fallen behind, let's say Madison is for people in strong towns. Like when the Lincoln Community Project came through and staff opposed on the conditional use permit based on some planning situation. It went to your issue about like, okay, we need 1,500 units, let's say this year.
Yeah.
Where are you gonna find 10 more sites? I mean, that's been kind of like one of the issues is I asked Lincoln Community, I said, how many could you do if you could just find the sites?
Yeah.
And get it, and that seems to be on the affordable housing side, it's not just the time to get it approved, it's just finding sites that, cause you're also competing with the market.
Yeah, for sure. And I do talk about that a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we can talk through I mean, I've heard a lot of what I was thinking about. So I think, having to avoid the rezoning issues in the first place, and kind of combine these 2 points, we do have vacant properties that the CDA owns. That's analysis that's later on, but if we don't have the funding now, but we know that those sites are going to be rezoned, we should do it now, before we have the plans, and just say, let's make this available for infill housing, such that when we are ready to build, that's not like a thing that we need to deal with. That's what I was thinking. Broader rezoning in general, just across the city, to make those more available, I think would be a good idea as well. I think there's something to documentation overhaul, trying to make the process more fill in the blank on situations, or do we really need to get into specifics about every single neighborhood? Is there something that we can do with the comprehensive plan that kind of defines what people are expecting from affordable housing, that plan or city staff can point to and say, this is what we agreed to as a city, and this is what we're gonna do. Of course, we can have a neighborhood meeting and talk about it, but at the end of the day, if the comp plan says this, that's what we're following, that's the law. I also heard that the stability in leadership and staff at CDA, specifically a couple roles, executive director, planning and real estate development, there's a lot of turnover in this decade. So what can we do to make those jobs more stable, and is there anything that we can do to build institutional knowledge and state capacity that allows us to handle departures better and keep the engine humming, so we don't get stuck with setbacks if someone leaves. Additionally, there's a lot of money that comes from affordable housing grants from state and federal levels. How do we become better at applying for those and dispersing grant money? Also, how do we insulate ourselves in the cases where a state or federal government doesn't agree with our goals for affordable housing? Is there anything that we can do to kind of generate our own funds as well? So, those are the kinds of things that I was thinking about. Really to reiterate, it seems like we spent a lot of money on this project, at least from what they were trying to do at the outset. The $455,000 also doesn't consider staff time and resources that were needed to get to this bid, and documentation for the rezoning. Median home sales are in the range of $400,000 to $450,000 in Madison. Can't compare apples to oranges, but I worry about negative attention if we consistently build homes above market prices. I think about the Madisonian who maybe reads a headline from a newspaper or a thread on Nextdoor, and they say, why are we building these so expensive and they take so long? And they probably don't have the context that we all do, which is housing is complicated and it takes a long time and resources to get it done. But I want to make sure that they aren't showing up to common council meetings and voicing opposition or voting for alders that don't support affordable housing. I want to bring them along in supporting affordable housing, I think that starts with reflecting and getting better on this baseline. Getting a better price and getting a better time. So, I had a lot of questions after digging into this topic. Those are, what other properties can we redevelop? Can we reuse designs? Can we speed up the design demo zoning process? Do we have more funds for CDA? More bids from developers, speeding up physical construction. I still have more. There's some partial answers for some of these. So one, what does the CDA own? They manage 742 units of public housing and 115 units of multifamily housing across Madison. These are all federally funded. From the city's assessor data, I was able to find 55 parcels under CDA ownership. 6 of these are listed as vacant. 4 have a listed property tax associated with them. The rest of them are parcels that are exempted from commercial, by commercial or residential exempt reasons. And the ownership is like CDA, MRCDC, there's an Allied Drive Redevelopment LLC. It ranges, but the 6 vacant lots are the ones that have my attention. If we have funds to build on them, I think we should be building now. If we don't have the funds, can we proactively rezone so that we're ready for it? Oops. Here's money that's allocated for affordable housing in Madison. Looks like there's around $50 million. Most of this is for Triangle redevelopment, as well as the South Madison redevelopment. Looks like there's a rolling $2 million for future projects on redevelopment, development, and preservation. I'm not exactly sure what this money means. This is where I'd love to talk to city staff about what this is for. But a lot of this is from TIF. South Madison is like $9 million from TIF, and the Triangle is a variety of sources, the majority being a developer capital funding amount. But there are 2 phases that still don't have estimates. So that 40 million, 41 million, I expect it to be higher at some point. Quick note on TIF, I think we should be careful about it. I think it's a double-edged sword. There are a lot of cities that are using it. TIF is just debt financing. We're foregoing property tax revenue to get the construction done now. And I think it makes sense to take on debt to build things that the market will not build. And I think affordable housing fits that category. But I worry about things where taking on debt to build things that the market kind of really doesn't want to build, but they think that Common Council will roll over and do it. And if Common Council just says no, then they'll probably still build it. My example for this is the South Livingston garage, where we spent $7 million on TIF funding for that. I don't know if that's the best use of funding sources that we have. So, not saying that Madison in particular is bad at this. I think there are other communities that tend to just take the money and go, but being careful about debt and where it goes is important. So, Triangle developments, they look better on a per unit cost scale. It's looking at around I think it's $200,000. I didn't update this part, but you can see it's $200,000 a unit. With the $300 million expected to be expensed for over 1,200 units, the minimum cost is going to be around $250. But the first phase, 350 unit building, only costs $71 million, and that was $200,000 per unit. So, important thing to remember though is every $12 million that we add in costs is $10,000 per unit. So we need to be careful about the money that we add on with these phases and just take serious thought on added expenses. That being said, I can't, cheapest isn't always the best answer. If that's the takeaway, then I led you astray in this presentation. I think the main reason why I researched this in the first place is I wasn't aware of this being built, and I wanted to know what our baseline was for 6 affordable units in Madison. Without any other context, the basic math that I got through the Legistar documents showed me $455,000 per unit and 3.5 years to get there. And I don't think that's gonna be realistically what we can use to get to our goals for affordable housing. And I wanna understand how we can lower those numbers. So I will say, these homes, they might have a unique opportunity. I think I was a little bit confused here. In the original plan, it mentioned using the rent-to-own Section 8 homeownership opportunity, where Section 8 voucher holders use the voucher to pay for mortgage payments rather than rent. But in our announcement, we said that this is gonna be permanently affordable, and to me that sounds like it's just gonna be a renting opportunity. But still, either way, someone is getting a permanently affordable option to live in Madison when they might not have had that opportunity otherwise. So,
So on that note, I think they're owned by the Madison Area Community Land Trust, and so
Okay.
it's effectively, it's like home ownership, but there are limits on the equity that you can get when you sell, and so you can't, the permanent affordability part of it is like, if the house doubles in value,
Yeah.
when you sell it, you get half of that gain, and then the other half stays, is used to keep the property affordable for the next person who lives there.
Yeah.
So that the house doesn't go up and down like a market rate
Cool.
would.
Nice. Yeah. What time is it? 5? Okay. Yeah. Darren, do I have time to talk about land value taxes?
Sure.
Okay, I'll try and go through this. This is a pet peeve of mine. I think it can work well with affordable housing. So, land value taxes are there to help with underused property. I've been convinced that this will help with a better building ecosystem in Madison, particularly in the downtown and central area, where there's a decent chunk of vacant or underused lots that contribute to a massive tax shortfall. I say that in quotes because we have a levy limit that I'll talk about later, but it's still something to at least acknowledge. So, land value tax values land instead of land and improvements. In Wisconsin, we're required by the Constitution to assess all real property at uniform rates. Real property is defined as the land and improvements on the land. We can do this in Madison, kind of. The assessor's office has to follow a code for valuing property. We can see this for 33 West Johnson Street. This parcel is valued at at $1 million in improvements, $0 in land, and as a result of the mill rate in Madison for property taxes, this property pays $17,000 in taxes per year. This is what 33 West Johnson Street looks like. It's vacant. It's a building that used to be a school. It's currently owned by MATC. There have been development attempts since 2017, but none of them have completed, and the scope has changed each time. I will balance it with 1 South Pinckney Street. I don't know how to say that street name, but it's US Bank Plaza. This building has a bank, other businesses, and condos. It's not a perfect comparison because it's on the Capitol Square, and 33 West Johnson is about like a 5-minute walk from the Capitol Square. But they're both downtown, and the parcel sizes are almost identical. They're just about 87,000 square feet. Here's the tax revenue comparison. US Bank Plaza pays $1.2 million in taxes compared to $17,000 for 33 West Johnson. This is because all of those businesses that are built on it are contributing to the improvement section as well as land. So land, they value that land at $10 million. The improvements are $57 million. That gets us to a total of $67 million, $1.2 million in taxes. Funnily enough, that entire tax amount is greater than the assessed value of 33 West Johnson, which in my mind is ridiculous. Anyone here, given the opportunity, if you had $1 million to buy 33 West Johnson, would you buy it and how much would you sell it for? $2 million, $5 million, $10 million? Probably the next day, you could get a buyer above the $1 million price. And that's where I get a little bit frustrated with this. MATC, from what they've said in their statements about building this property, they are speculating. They want to build a project that will allow them to generate revenue for the school, and why not wait until the perfect project comes along that can guarantee you a great profit stream, something that you can lend out and it gets you the money that you are waiting for. Madison land is expensive. It's getting more valuable over time, especially in our downtown core. We know that property taxes are probably going to go up, but the amount that the property taxes are going to go up is probably going to be well offset by the value of the property itself that you can sell it for. So effectively, MATC basically just has to wait out $17,000 each year, and they're going to get that from the land itself appreciating.
That's like the confluence of all things, so they won't sell the land, so it's gotta be a land lease.
Yes.
Which makes it harder to do a project, even though you can get into the existentialism of land leases and only feasible, but it has to be a land lease, and then those buildings there aren't historical, but they're in the one of the penumbras of history
Yeah.
That with Vivier saying that they would like to see them, reused. So you have to find a project, right now Drury is the one with the land lease.
Yes.
They were gonna do their hotel before it hit. One of their big problems now is finding somebody to do the apartments.
Yeah.
Who will pay enough to convert those buildings. Like, so it's the whole thing, like.
Yeah.
You really should just scrape the site and sell the land for 15 million.
Yeah.
And 15 million and,
Is MATC restricted from selling it? No.
no, it's they don't think, they think people will get mad at them.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it's the city of Madison has tons of land leases where it's like the land is in, you know, it's always,
It's just Madison College.
so.
Paul, did you have a question?
I'd forgotten what MATC was.
Sorry,
I don't
yeah,
think-
Madison Area Technical College. Sorry, I should have explained that. But yeah, like there's a lot of things here. I'm still gonna say, I think if you value the land at the amount that it's actually worth and you have to pay taxes on that, I think it's gonna get people to move faster and basically decide, is this something I actually wanna develop on and generate income that can help pay for those taxes, or do I wanna give it to someone else? So that's where, if that example wasn't a good one, if you're like, those parcels are too far apart, you know, Capitol Square gets a premium, it wouldn't actually go for $10 million. I'll show you East Washington. These are the 1,000 blocks across the street from each other on East Washington. The even side is like Lyric, Arden, Fetch, what's the sushi restaurant? Jackknife. Lots of other businesses. And separated by 8 lanes and a median is across the street, I think it's April Air, a parking lot, a car wash, some apartments, maybe a bank, and a warehouse that I'm not even sure is in use. The odd side of the street generates $143,000 in taxes. The even side of the street generates $1.5 million in taxes. So that is 10x already, just by the form of what's being built on the land. Even though like it is almost the exact same amount of land on either side of the street. So the whole purpose of the land value tax is just to ensure that you are building things that generate value in the area of the city that it's in. And that's where I would say, I don't know if surface level parking lots are super critical downtown. Those feel like a luxury, and it's an expensive luxury. If people would like to pay for those expensive luxury in those spots, feel free, but otherwise, can we move on to something else that can generate value for the city? This also means that the city's kind of artificially subsidizing those parking lots as well, or those warehouses that are just getting speculated on. Everyone else is paying higher property taxes as a result of it. So a couple of catches to a land value tax in Wisconsin. We don't allow cities to separate land and improvements as separate taxable properties. You need an amendment, like seen in this text, that's happened for minerals or for agriculture. We would need to pass an amendment that passes 2 sessions of the state legislature, and then it goes to the vote for the populace. Land value taxes can be bipartisan, but it's kind of in the weeds topic that most people don't know about. Voters tend to get misinformed. Even though most people are better off, the people who do face higher taxes are typically people who own underused building in large population centers, and they're the most likely to yell and get upset and say, no, we shouldn't do this. Best examples are warehouses, parking lots, mansions in the middle of downtown. But if you approach it right, you can see a tax decrease for most voters. And that's what I would focus on. Milwaukee set an interesting precedent, though. There was an issue about 2 decades ago where a piece of land was valued for $10 million by the city assessor, and it's right next to the Milwaukee airport. It was assessed at $10 million because of its use as a parking garage or parking lot for the airport itself. The owner sued and said, no, this thing is worth $3 million. You can't incorporate incomes into valuing of land. The local circuit agreed to the property owner, and then the state court of appeals overturned it And the state court of appeals said it was totally fine for the assessor to move from the tier 1 and tier 2 protocols for assessing land, which were arm's length sales and reasonably comparable projects, which there were none of, to tier 3, which is a cost and income analysis, where the assessor said, we know this parking lot's generating a lot of income, we're going to incorporate that into the value of the land. What's really funny about this is during the appeal process, the owner did sell the land and they sold it for $12 million. So like even the assessor was still below what it was actually worth, at least on the market. But the Court of Appeals established firmly that the uniformity clause needs to apply uniformly for tax classes, and that real property is land and improvements. So that's where they became kind of intertwined. You can't pass some ordinance at the state level to say land can be excluded. It needs to be a change in the Constitution. Madison could use this, but should we is an interesting question. We could use the Milwaukee precedent and make a lot of these other areas pay more of their fair share in land value, but if you look at the income generation for all the properties, you're probably going to be hitting newer properties with higher tax burdens. So could you assess the underutilized land at higher rates? Yes, as long as there weren't those tier 1 or tier 2 processes for assessing land, but I think ideally you would do both of these reforms. You would assess the land at its higher value that we know it to be, and then also you would focus your taxes to be just on the land and not on the improvements. We also have a levy limit, so you can't just magically add in $1 million. Like if we said that 33 West Johnson is worth $15 million, and we say that they owe us whatever amount of money in taxes, it's not just gonna increase the budget by that much. We can only levy a certain amount. What it would do is it would redistribute the tax incidence across everyone else. Everyone would probably end up paying a smaller amount of taxes.
Yeah, I should know this, but let's say you had a vacant lot, you build something new, that increases the amount of the budget, right? I mean, like, it's different to say, you know, absolutely, you reassess an existing real property, it just moves between, let's say, commercial and resident, you know, but if it's a new development.
Yeah, so if you want to increase the levy limit, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a net new construction percentage. It's basically like how much property did you build in the last year minus how much you demolished divided by the total amount of property value in the city. And whatever that percentage is, you can either increase your levy limit by that or 3%, whichever one is lower. So
Whatever's lower. But
yeah.
that's where the one you showed earlier, the old MATC
Yeah.
is the killer.
Yeah.
Like,
You would see a net construction increase from, even if the demolition is going to be less than what it was actually built.
well, and it was exempt before.
Yes, that is also true. Yeah.
So it'd be like, you should scrape it, sell it, and let somebody build one of these huge properties on there.
Yeah. So yeah, it's nuanced. I don't want to say like, yeah, we're gonna get $1.2 million.
No, I
yeah.
know, but yeah, but I know
Yes.
that, like, it's so difficult, we think, so many of these ideas have such a downstream problem from calling things, from the historical preservation of the Wonder Bar.
Yeah.
Which probably delayed it so much. I mean, I think it's gonna get redeveloped, but
Yes.
the process slowed it, like, cost a year, and then the interest rates hit. And
Yep.
then you're like,
Yeah. So yeah, I think this is still a good thing to do. Even if we can't increase it by 1.2, I still think it lowers the incidence for everyone else too.
yeah.
It does allow us to get more net new construction, but I think the city has said like that's not as big of a deal as I want to make it out to be, because I just want to build. But yeah, other entities are using in-rem foreclosure and land banking to expand affordable housing, which is something that we're doing. Like, we're doing land banking for sure. In-rem foreclosure is when properties with long overdue property taxes are transferred into public ownership. Most of these are very neglected properties. So I can understand people getting nervous if they hear this, they're like, that's eminent domain. But it's like, these are vacant, under maintained and appreciated. they are properties that should be incorporated into the public because the person who's responsible for that land is not taking care of it, and they're delinquent. So if we can incorporate these kinds of lots that maybe see an increase in land value taxes because people aren't moving on them, and we can help push those into the land banking process for the city, that's an opportunity for sites to develop on. So yeah, this is something, land value taxes like Minnesota, Colorado, and Maryland are all looking at these. Something I'm hoping to bring up with some of the governor candidates in 2026, even to just like, is this something you might consider? Is this a win? But this is.
What does that do to our, like, property taxes just in general?
What's that?
The land, like, if you did this, let's just say, cause that's what somebody's gonna say, I'm a homeowner.
Yeah.
My house is 500,000, we do LVT, my taxes go up, they stay the same, they go down.
For most people, they would go down. Cause again, I think most people are either on smaller or medium lots
Yeah.
in this city where the land is actually valuable, or you're in areas where the land is not that valuable and it's just, you know, it's like normal property taxes. Basically, everyone's got the same thing.
Yep.
This is going to hit anything that's underused. So parking lots, warehouses, I would say, I think Madison in particular, Lakeview houses are probably gonna get hit because people would say that that land is more valuable than just being right outside of, like if you can't see the lake, I think there will be a distinction there. But I think most people would see a decrease.
And maybe I'm not understanding this exactly, but the land value tax, is it removing the improvements value? So there's no longer an improvements value, it's purely just the value of the land.
Yes.
This would also incentivize actual development because people, like, whatever that bank building, like,
Yeah.
they would pay way less in taxes.
Yes, yeah. And I think this would help renters in particular.
Yeah.
Like I think renters in larger apartment buildings, they're probably paying more of the property tax burden than they should be.
I might say it might help landlords.
But- no, but this is where-
No, it doesn't get passed on necessarily because there's two markets, one for rentals
Yeah.
and one for landlords.
Fair.
And there's not a pass-through, like they taught you Unicon.
I would recommend reading Progress in Poverty. It's a Substack that's totally focused on land value taxes. They put out some stuff that I think it would take a bit, but it would equalize because there would be landlords that would be looking at poaching renters and basically saying that like my property tax just went down significantly. How can I incorporate that into my profit margin while getting full vacancy in my apartment? And that would pull people, and it would basically be a climb to the bottom of what the actual tax plus the costs of running the apartment building would be.
I put in the opposite, that I imagine it would lead people to do more development because
Yeah.
all of a sudden,
Yeah, that's it.
incremental
That's-
units are cheaper.
That's
Yeah.
the way you get there. It takes, in the beginning, none of it gets passed through. After you've completed the build out, all of it gets passed through. So
Yes.
like 15-year time horizon, complete pass through, it's year zero, nothing.
Yeah,
But then it can actually extend on, like if you increase land tax on a rental, that may close some buildings, but for the most part, it's just not gonna get passed through to renters. Because they're just stuck, like the best option is to keep renting rather than demolish the building or give it up.
yeah,
But the other thing about this is and you can see this on your map, is that it would just kill condos because of the way we do the taxes on condos. Like the condo building right by my house, right across from Madison Yards, is like, looks like downtown for the taxes, and the rental right next to it looks like the rest of Madison Yards. It's like, it's relatively low value, which is insane, like that we tax people more to own a condo than
Yeah.
to rent.
And you tax the condo as soon as it becomes a unit, as if it was built. Like when you look at them go, they don't, like, so I create a condo and I haven't built it, I now have 20 units. I get taxed as if there's 20 units there, even though I haven't built anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's different than I subdivide a lot into 20 lots. Like, it's really weird, because I used to have people coming to me all the time now and saying, we wanna do expandable condos because we don't wanna get taxed.
Mm.
You know, we'll do them, like when you
So
see.
it's like huge units and then we're gonna break them up.
Correct. And just do them, as we build them, we will expand the condo every time we build like a 4-unit, so that we don't get taxed until we build it. It's really weird, and I don't understand it exactly.
I do, yeah, I don't know, land value tax might help simplify that though, cause at the end of the day, you're not taxing the condo itself, right? You're just taxing the land underneath the condo, that just needs to be distributed amongst all of the condo owners, right?
Homes do get an assessment premium because there is, I mean, you can see this, there is like a value in property. And so people are willing to spend more on it than they would be on.
Right, but that's just like you've aligned the incentives, like you've removed like principal agent problem, that like, people don't go through and mess up their condos and then try and pretend they didn't, right?
No.
Like.
But yeah, that's what Josh is saying, is that like an LBT would make that simpler because.
It depends on how you do it. The other objection I always have, and I know I've told you this before, is that you, like, it makes it so you don't want your property upzoned. Because the zoning tends to be the primary driver of land value. And
Yeah.
so,
I think that's fair, but I think that also comes from, can we generalize zoning more and make areas that we understand that this whole section, like you wouldn't wanna be necessarily on a border, but.
yeah, I think if zoning was much more, if zoning was very different, I think it would be okay.
Yeah.
Like, I think the recent changes would be fine examples, cause they probably haven't changed land values very much.
Yeah.
But like, it would've made the, whatever, transit-oriented design would have been a bigger problem, because it's like, not only is it like, I don't want the dang bus, I don't ride the bus, it would have also been like, and you're gonna make me pay more in taxes because I'm getting upzoned.
But again, that
Which is exactly
could
what
be.
you want, because you want people to upzone it so that you build near the transit. and-
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a gap, too, just thinking from the development world, so you go to hit me with my LVT, but it takes me 3.5 or 4 years
to actually get it, your
to build
income
my,
stream.
let's say, yeah, I'm gonna like, oh shit, I'm getting taxed cause I'm downtown, and in order to really have that tax I'm being taxed as if I had a 10-story building on it, because that's the highest and best use, and it should be that, I might not have it right, but that's what I'm asking, is there this like gap till you get there, where you're getting hammered on taxes?
So the other part of an LBT is that it reduces land values, and so the amount that you're gonna pay in taxes gets capitalized into
Gotcha.
the land value, so you
I
might
gotta
be
read
paying.
I gotta read this on staff.
You might be paying more in,
Just-
yeah.
Sorry, okay, dinner reservation.
Okay.
Families in town from California, so.
Oh, sorry.
All good. Yeah, so to wrap this up, this is the last slide. This is from the late 1800s and early 1900s. This is like Progress and Poverty. Henry George, who wrote a book. It was a phenomenon. The slogan of the movement was, "Can you see the cat?" So can you see the cat?
No, right? Get them.
In the tree, right?
Yep, right here. So, and the whole thing with land value taxes is kind of
Oh,
like.
that's not what I was looking
Oh.
at.
I mean, it could be multiple, but once you see it, it like kind of changes you, and you can't go back.
Yeah.
So it was like once you
Oh, I
see
see.
the land value tax and how it is beneficial and kind of drives that development, you can't go back. So I kind of want more people in Wisconsin to see the cat and get us there. So, yeah. Thank you, Madison, Madison Co-listening.
No, thank you. I'll read on